Good evening, everyone. And I just want to say first, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Credential Registry Lunch webinar hosted by AIC and the Registry Managing Team, EBSCO. Okay. And my name is LaCarrie Gill, and I am the Credential Registry Specialist here at AIC, and I will be the main contact for any changes regarding the credentials that's already in place in the Credential Registry. Also, we have Dr. Robin McGill, who is the AIC's Deputy Director here at AIC, Director of Academic Affairs, I'm sorry, and representing the Alabama Talent Triad and EBSCO today. We have Troy, Christian, and we also have Ms. Peg on the webinar today. So we're excited to be a part of the Talent Triad, and the project has been in place for, been in the works for several years, and now we are trying to make it happen, and we are ready for your participation. Please note that this Zoom is being recorded, and if anyone that is not here on the Zoom today, we are able to send the recording to other participants who would like to hear. And just a brief background of how and why the Credential Registry came into play. The Credential Engine, a nonprofit organization, reported that the U.S. had over 950,000 types of credentials, including professional licensures. With the large numbers of credentials, of course, it can be very difficult for individuals to identify the best education or training programs for employment. Also, for employees to access worthy or skilled people who have the skill for the job settings that they are offering. And with that, Governor Ivey, in collaboration with Credential Engine, the Lumina Foundation, AIC, Alabama Works Council, and other stakeholders, initiated the Alabama Credential Registry that involved making information about the state's credentials more transparent and allowing individuals to know what skills that it takes to apply for different jobs and to make better choices in the workforce industry. This approach also gave Alabama a common language to break down the competencies of each credential offered in the state, and that was giving policymakers, education and training providers, and opportunity seekers a clear vision of what the needs for the labor market was here in the state of Alabama. Also, the Credential Registry connects job seekers with potential employers across Alabama, enabling users to create resumes, build profiles, search for jobs, apprenticeships, and more throughout the system in the registry. So here with this slide, what is Alabama Credential Registry? It's the initiation involving providing validated learning employment records, which is the LERs, for all of Alabama students through the Alabama Talent Triad with a digital wallet. This system ensures that each student academic and employment credentials are securely stored and easily accessible for future use. The Alabama Credential Registry is a system designed to collect and display information about various credentials, such as badges, certificates, licenses across the state of Alabama, and also will put you in a place where you'll be recognized for the most valuable credential throughout each region in the state of Alabama. The skill-based job generator matches individuals' jobs based on their specific skills, helping both job seekers and employers to make the right fit for the job. So we'll move forward. Okay, and currently, for the state of Alabama, Alabama State Department of I used to work at Corrections. Please forgive me. Alabama State Department of Education, the community college system, and the adult education have both added their credentials into the Alabama registry. And AIC, along with EBSCO, have also uploaded some course information from AIC's program inventory into the Credential Registry, which provide data, which the data that is provided right now is still on a draft status. So nothing is just official at this point. You can also get login information for your institution from the EBSCO staff. And we'll have a Google sheet that you can fill out to let us know who will be the contact person that will basically drive this initiative for the Credential Registry for the courses that should be uploaded. The institution can update records at any time. However, I have noticed with me just going in trying to fill around with that initially the date does change effectively when you're in the system, and sometimes if information doesn't update until like the following day or a few hours later. I did notice that. I'm not sure if some guys from EBSCO really know about that, but when I was playing around in the registry, that's what I did notice. And we are requesting for course details and skills data to be updated, and you can update it in real time. And if you have any questions with updating or something's not going the way you see fit, you can contact me. I will be your point of contact to have any updated information to be finalized, or, you know, if I have to go to EBSCO to ask some questions, I am your person to do that. So we can definitely work together and get that done. Okay, let's see here. Okay, and now that we are here, it's time, you know, we need your support to ensure that the platform is operating to the highest potential, and that we're asking everyone to log in to make sure your credentials are up to date and accurate. And if you see anything that's not accurate, or, you know, something that needs to be changed, you can definitely reach out to me and I can help you from that aspect. And by doing so, if you just go in and just check, and by doing so, it can enhance the visibility of the credentials and be more efficient for the students and for the employers to find what they need in the system. Okay. So now I will pass it over to Kristen and allow her to talk about the following slides.
Sure, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
So really, in a first step of your involvement and engagement will be to take a look at the program inventory credentials, or the credentials we created from the program inventory that it provided to us. That's a very skeleton view of your credential records. You'll see as we peek at the system here throughout the conversation that there's lots of fields of information that you can optionally choose to collect and share through the platform. That said, we can publish the inventory or the index in its current state and then continue to iterate on it over time. So this isn't a once and done. We expect these to be living records that can evolve over time. So no real pressure there, but the first step is to decide whether or not you approve publishing this simple index that exists there that's in draft state today. And you can choose yes or no. From there, you're going to choose whether you want a full service experience or a self-service experience. So in a self-service experience, you would use these credentials, log in, manage these records one at a time, and go ahead and publish as you see fit. Those records are yours to maintain forever, and that condition exists regardless of which method you choose to populate in these early days. The other option is a more full service option. That's where you might share assets like your course catalogs and ask us to do some of the work of collecting and cataloging some of that record detail at the program or course level. So that might be skills and competencies, that might be, you know, hours or whatever is appropriate for that particular program. So we can do some of that work for you if you provide us the information. That might look like links to course catalogs. That might look like a spreadsheet of data, and we could certainly provide you a template if that's helpful. So it's really a case of you decide as an institution, what is the capacity and appetite for this type of work, and how deep do you want to go, and how much service would you like us to provide? So really, you choose full service or self-service as a path forward. You can change your mind later. You can say, I'm going to do it myself, and then get a month in and say, no, I'd really like some help. Both are fine options, and you can change your mind whenever. But we do ask that we at least start to assign a contact person, make an initial decision about publishing the draft index. Really, it's kind of like a program name in an institution at this point. But will you publish that, or would you like to keep a draft and work on it some? And would you like to do that work yourself or have us help? So that's the first step, is to make those decisions and share that information. And we can either get to work or start planning some training and how we can help you along the way. You'll skip to step 2 for me, Carrie. And then step 2 is a bit of a bigger initiative. And we recognize that certainly AIC is not required you to provide non-degree credential information, but we want to recognize its importance. And as we build the governor's compendium of valuable credentials into the credential registry, it's important that we capture those things. So I'm sure you all are familiar with the terms and what's included in there, but I'll give an example just for clarity. I may take a business administration program, but I may earn a Microsoft Excel certificate in the process of completing that program. How do I capture that Microsoft Excel certificate that happened as part of my coursework? And how do we make sure that those elements end up in the credential registry as independent credentials? And then we can look at how do we evolve from, individuals self-attesting those in their LER, so loading those badges, through to how might we automate that award similar to a formal degree program. So I'll stop there and see if we have any questions around what we're asking of you in form of engagement before I go in to give you a peek at the tools and how simple they are to use.
Me just add one thing when you're talking about the skeleton of the inventory. That's what AIC has in our systems on program review. And most of that information institutions can get to on AIC's website, but really it is very skeletal. We're talking about like program title and CIP code, and sometimes it has the number of hours, and sometimes it has a SOC code. It does have the level, what kind of degree it is, but in order for the system to function, it really needs a lot more qualitative information, high quality, accurate information. So we're really hoping that institutions will engage in this process.
Thank you so much. So, LaCarrie, do you want me to step through these slides, or would you like to do it?
If you will, and then
Sure.
Next time I will.
No problem.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you're going to visit alabamatalenttriad.com. That's easy to remember. I think we've all heard that enough times now. I'm just going to click login, simple as I see with that finger there in the middle of the screen. We can go to the next slide. There, I'm going to log in with the credentials that are going to be provided in that Google Sheet. That's just going to give you generic access for your institution. When you decide who might need to log in here and do the work as an individual, we can certainly set up those accounts, and you can request those through that sheet as well. So we'll keep track of who's in there doing the work, but you can certainly recruit a whole team. You can delegate this work any way you like. There'll be permission to access the credentials for your institution. Should you require some further permission control, we can certainly talk about that. But you go ahead and sign up at the very bottom if you wanted to create yourself a personal wallet as well. So once you log in with the credentials provided in the Google Sheet for your institution, you'll see that My Credentials button up at the top. And that's where it's going to filter the credential registry to just the ones you have permission to manage. So we can see here this test user, Sarah, has access permission for Northeast Alabama Community College. So she only sees their 274 records in this particular listing. You'll notice on the left-hand column that I could go ahead and just create a new credential. Any of you could go in and create a new credential at any time. That might be a non-degree credential if you wanted to do that in a self-service way. Or it might be a degree credential that somehow got missed in INC's inventory, and you could go ahead and add it here as well.
Now, can I impose, will that
Of
still
course.
always be in draft if they go and try to create a new credential before it's published?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
they will have to publish in order to see the published status, and they will see the draft ones. In that publication status, Sarah only has published credentials, but they would see draft there on the left as well
Okay,
and be able to look at those separate.
thank you.
Perfect. Next slide. There we go. So I can choose any credential on that page, and I'll just click on the title of it, and it'll bring me into the credential record. So we can see in the example here that at the top, I've got the name of the credential and the issuing institution. We use one organization or institution table to feed a few types of classifiers on a program. So the issuer and the data provider are often the same, but they might be different. In the case of the Microsoft Excel credential, you might determine that Microsoft is actually the issuer and that you are just the provider of the data. So you'll see that when you start to edit, that oftentimes those fields are the same, but you have some granularity should you need to use it. The next, we see that big skills summary, that big body of copy. That is AI generated. So to take what might be hundreds of skills terms in that field and summarize it in a human readable way that might make sense to a learner and an employer. So we'll see that there, and that's not editable. That's just auto-generated. Then we see the skills and experiences, and we'll see a little show me more, that little red piece underneath. That is oftentimes a very long list, and that's okay, but it really captures all the things that this learner can now know and do based on the program at hand. And then we see the relationships between other credentials. So required credentials would be courses that are required to complete this credential, but we really do try to get as granular as possible at the course level. What this does is allow us to recognize prior learning more visually in the relationships between the credentials and different sources of education. So in this case at the community college, I've got 3 courses that are required for this credential. I don't have any related, but related might be electives or optional courses or things that somehow otherwise stack into this credential. Might be that Microsoft Excel certificate that we would consider related but not required. Really depends on your program, how you organize those, but you can associate these records together there. And then we see education provider at the bottom. And that's a pretty important piece of the information because that's what tells us where this education experience needs to happen. And so you can imagine as we're recommending personalized learning and earning opportunities to individuals that it's really important to know where that opportunity might exist geographically. So an important piece of information in the record. So now that I've oriented you a little bit with what a credential record looks like, you'll notice on the right-hand column of that view that I can switch to the contributor view. And that's where I'm going to look at it as an editor, as yourselves as administrators of these records, and let you see how you can manage this information and what other information is possible. ACCS, while their skeleton is a little more robust than your skeleton starting point here, it's certainly not as comprehensive as it could be, and why it's really important that you have this iterative ability to evolve these records over time and have a centralized place to capture all this information about these programs in an open and transparent way. So when we click on switch to contributor view, you notice we come into this tabbed view of the data. So on the left-hand column there, we're on credential details, but we can tab through occupation and sector, the related credentials. This is so that you're editing one part of the record at a time, since there are so many fields and ways to select things. We really want to keep it user-friendly. Maybe I'm coming in here with a specific purpose. I want to be able to get to that part of the workflow very quickly. Maybe I know I'm coming in here to update occupation data, and I want to be able to just get to that. So each one of these tabs manages a certain section. I click edit the section. I would go ahead and make my selections changes, and then I would simply save each section. You'll notice on the bottom left that there is the last updated date and then the status publisher draft. So you can switch the status at any time as you see fit as well. Now, skills are the most important part of the record by terms of informing the algorithms and the Alabama Talent Triad to make those quality recommendations and to really understand the scope of education, opportunity, and alignment to jobs at a bigger scale. So this is what we would say is the most important piece of data if we were to focus somewhere to start. Now, skills is a simple term that everyone can resonate with, but there's a lot in there. We would call that a suitcase word. We use the acronym PACS within the platform a lot, which means professional abilities, competencies, knowledge, and skills, because really those are all the things that employers are looking to understand about you and the things that you will gain by being in an education experience. Regardless of what that experience is. So think of these statements as being able to be any one of those things. What do I know and what can I do? And how those might present themselves. Now, you could just start typing in this box and it'll start to auto generate suggestions from our ontology based on what you're typing. And it will continue to evolve those suggestions as you type. So as you build a phrase, it will look for that phrase within additional statements here. Those vocabularies are recommended to use whenever you can, because that's going to create those relationships within the credentials in the system and help us understand those patterns at scale, which will just help us all be more informed. But if the skill that you're trying to add is not in this vocabulary, that's quite all right as well. You just keep typing and it's going to give you an option to add a new term to the vocabulary. So this is where your expertise and your institutional knowledge and information is really going to seed the system and help us understand what's happening in the state at a much broader level, as well as a much more specific level that will allow us to action on those data points. So lots to be gleaned as we move forward if we can all contribute and effectively feed the skills ontology. We'll move on to the next one. Now, the last tab in here is the ACCQT review. And this is where the state committee reviews credentials for inclusion in the compendium of valuable credentials. Lots of states have an initiative similar to this, but it's really important that the state be able to differentiate the programs that we know are of quality, that generate, living wage employment. So there are criteria that credentials must meet, occupational alignment, in order for the state to recognize them through this process. Almost all of your programs are going to qualify, I am most certain, if not all. Some of those non-degree programs may be on the fence a little bit, depending on what they are, but I would anticipate that they're all good candidates for this process. In order to be considered for inclusion in that compendium, you do have to answer these few questions that we see on the screen here, and submit for that committee review. In order to do that, these are the baseline criteria that will help them make that classification. The state is also committed to not restricting the registry to only those that we deem valuable. We really want to capture all the work-based learning and volunteer-based learning and all of the wonderful things that happen out there so that we can understand them and move them towards this valuable status. But we want to make sure that we are recognizing those programs that are formalized and meet the criteria today.
Kristen, can I ask a quick clarifying question on your categories up there at the top? Success plus, success post-secondary, and complementary.
Yes.
What are the differences?
Oh, I have a little table about that somewhere. I would have to pull it up. I don't know, Troy, if you remember exactly what constitutes which.
No, yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah,
pull
I'll
that
have
as
to
well.
follow that out. I don't know that we have anyone from the committee on the call.
That's okay.
Um,
I'm filling in on the committee sometimes, but I think what we talked about is post-secondary degrees are all going to be a post-secondary credential. So really, the degrees like the AA and liberal arts that's up there is not really going to need to fill this out because it's already kind of classified as a post-secondary credential.
Well,
But
those are
it's
things that we could work on at a AIC level to include in the skeleton, but we do need the data flagged in each record in order
okay.
for that
That's good to
digital
know.
submission to happen. So this is a good comment and a good conversation to
I'm
have.
glad that I
So
clarified that for me.
yes, so we may autofill some of these results in those
Yeah.
draft skeleton loads. Let's take that as a takeaway.
Yeah, and then Success Plus, those are tend to be the non-degree credentials, right? They're not otherwise reviewed. So they really, the ones that are non-degree and non-credit in particular, this form is really valuable to fill out because they
Yeah.
won't otherwise be marked in the system as being things that users should pay attention to.
Yes, exactly. That I can confirm. There
Okay.
is some subtle
Glad I
nuance
got that one
between
right.
those levels, but at a high level, you got her. You bet. And just highlighting that published status down there. So it doesn't say draft. So I'm glad we're looking at that. It says published and unpublished. So in order to get that draft status, you would just unpublish the record. And then won't be visible to the public yet. So if you wanted to work on that before folks could see it, you could unpublish at any time.
Okay. This with the update at any time.
And yeah, so you can come back and you can iterate on these over time. So if you want to delegate to each department in the institution, you've got, a committee of individuals, however you'd like to manage and delegate this work, we can work with you to design, to give the right permissions to the right users, to design either a training program, or a batch data collection process or whatever suits your institution and your workflow. We hope that over this school year, we can make some significant progress and get the bulk of the index at least published and available to the public so we can start to see how pathways stack up through levels of education. But certainly no, firm dates or deadlines on this work. It's yours to treat as a living source of data.
All right, well, I do thank you, Kristen, for taking us through those slides. And I do appreciate you all that on the Zoom today. So now, for the record, AIC is now ready to help institutions to input both credit and non-credit credentials into the registry and help facilitate the inclusion for the compendium of value credentials. And of course, like we said before, although the information is most data is in there, it's like a skeletal data. We still need a lot of fields filled out that's missing information. So I am here to assist anyone who needs help once we get login credentials and we can move forward from there. So if I'm needed, my email is here. You can contact me at any time to move forward with this process. And I'd like to thank EBSCO again for being on the webinar today.
So let me ask about the check your email for institutional credentials. Do we know who's gonna get that email, or we're gonna ask them to provide us a list of folks?
We should send out this deck with the Google Sheet linked in it, where we'll collect the point of contact for each institution, and then we should send them a welcome email, again with the same deck to that specific person with their login credentials to look at the draft records and a reminder of where to ask for help or more users or whatever they like.
And what if there are different contacts for credit versus non-credit?
That's okay. If they trust each other to not edit each other's records, the permissions will be fine. They'll just both get credentials for their institutions, access to their institution's credentials. Should they feel the need that there be a technical permissions wall, we can look at that, but that's not something we would just request through the support desk because I would have to separate the permissions there a little bit for them. So we could do some further refinement there if anybody needed that specificity, but typically in an education environment, we're okay with some gentleman's rules on how we work.
And this particular option isn't gonna have any student data access, so we're really just talking
That's right.
about public information.
Right.
And, yeah, so I can
Yeah.
see that that'll probably work just fine.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So I don't have any other questions for you all. Well, no, I don't. You explained that early in the slide that they can go and request login credentials, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay,
thank you
everybody.
so
Well,
much.
thank you for listening to the webinar. It'll be posted as always on AIC's website. We'll also post a link to the slides and the link to the Google Sheets. And like we just discussed, will be circulating email that has this information and also requests the institutional contact and has a link to the webinar. So nobody can claim that they will be uninformed about how this works.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you, guys.
Kristen. Thanks, Troy
Thank you.
and LaCarrie. We'll see y'all soon.
All right.